AITA for telling the truth about fake data at work even though it cost me my job. I'm 29F, a junior data analyst at a mid-sized healthcare tech company. We build scheduling and billing software for clinics. Nothing glamorous, but it keeps the lights on. I'm the quiet type who double-checks things for fun. I like rules because they make the world legible. I like databases because they don't gaslight you. If a query returns 1,273 rows, you can argue about what it means, but you can't argue that the rows exist. Which is why what happened feels like someone picked up my entire life and shook it until the screws started coming out. My manager, Jay, is a charismatic 38M who looks like a startup poster. White sneakers, 3 monitors, a confidence that absorbs oxygen. He calls everyone rockstar. People say he saved the company last year by retooling our product pricing after a bad quarter. He's also the reason I got my promotion. When I thanked him, he winked and said, "No one promotes data, people promote stories." I should have paid more attention to that sentence. 2 months ago, we were bidding on a region-wide contract with a chain of 60 clinics. The RFP asked for historical scheduling accuracy, claim denial rates, and time to bill. Numbers that show our product reduces friction and gets clinics paid faster. Our competitor is bigger and better known. We needed the case study and that deck to sing. Jay asked me to pull a report, the last 18 months of time to bill for our top 50 clients. He wanted medians and P95 across quarters, raw CSVs for auditability, and a shiny chart for the execs. I wrote the queries, cleaned outliers, documented the steps, and discovered a problem I didn't expect. 6 months ago, we introduced an auto-submit feature that was supposed to shave off 1-2 days. Our marketing promised 36% faster time to bill. But the real median improvement across those 50 clients, 9%. Worse, for 7 clients, the metric actually got worse, likely due to how their clearinghouse interacts with our API throttling. I brought this to Jay with the plot. He stared a long time and said, "Okay, let's isolate data from customers who activated auto-submit properly." He meant those who followed our best practices, new claim templates, batch windows, webhook acknowledgements. That's fair, a feature can't fix what people misconfigure. I reran the numbers. Among properly configured customers, about 60% of the cohort, the median improvement jumped to 23%. Better, but still not 36%. He asked to see my SQL. I gave it to him and watched his eyes track line 18, where I filtered out any claim missing a submitted at timestamp. He asked if that excluded late submitted batches that were ingested in a different pipeline. I said no, those are normalized by a nightly job. He nodded and said, "Cool, cool." The next morning, he sent the exec team the final numbers, a 34% median improvement post-feature. The slide said 36% in bold because marketing alignment. The footnote said cohort, clients with best practice implementation. I blinked at the email chain. His attached CSV had the right column names, but not the same counts. When I asked for his query, he said he used a quick pivot in a BI tool with slightly different logic. I felt that cold elevator drop in my stomach. The one that tells you the ground just moved, and you're smiling like it didn't. I pulled the BI extract from the warehouse logs. His slightly different logic excluded all claims with payer responses beyond 10 days, labeling them payer delay noise. In other words, any slow claim, no matter the cause, vanished. The feature looked magical because the data was filtered to remove the very delays clinics want us to help with. I wrote a tidy message. "Hey, excluding long-tail payer delays will bias the median." The RFP asks for end-to-end time to bill. He responded with a thumbs-up emoji and later, in a stand-up, told the team, "Thanks to Anna's diligence, we validated a 36% reduction." For 2 days, I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. Then the legal liaison, Mara, pinged me for the data lineage documentation to accompany the RFP. This is where panic started prickling behind my eyes. If our numbers were challenged, I'd be the one whose JIRA tickets and Git commits got subpoenaed. I scheduled a meeting with Jay and Mara. I showed both sets of numbers. Mine 23% for best practice clients, 9% overall, and Jay's 34%. I carefully explained the bias introduced by excluding long-tail claims. Mara asked, "Does the RFP define time to bill as end-to-end?" I read it out loud. It did. Jay leaned back and said, "End-to-end is a philosophy. Clients care about what we can control. We don't control payer backlog." Mara frowned. "But if a regulator asks, we can't say we redefine the metric, right?" Jay smiled. "We'll say we segmented by controllable scope." Totally normal. Everyone does this. On my way back to my desk, my badge didn't work on the analytics suite door for 20 seconds. It did on the second try, but that pause felt prophetic. I opened Slack and saw a new channel, #RFX1. Confetti emojis. 36% improvement. Jay tagged me with Data Wizard. The VP commented, "This is the story we needed." I stared at my hands and thought of my dad, who used to fix vending machines. He'd tell me, if a machine gives out an extra candy and you pretend not to notice, someday it'll short a wire and someone will get shocked. I emailed a memo to myself with the subject, "Time to bill methodology concerns," attached both query files, diffs highlighted, and sent a copy to my personal email because I'm not stupid. Then I asked Jay, privately, to revise the slide to 23% median improvement among properly configured clients, 9% overall. He sent me a calendar invite titled Narrative Alignment. In his office, he closed the door and switched to the soft voice people use before they remove a bandage. "You're brilliant," he said, "but naive. Numbers don't live in the wild, they live in context. Our competitor's deck says 40% faster with auto-adjudication. Absolutely no chance that's end-to-end. If we show you're 9% overall, we look incompetent. If we show 36% controllable improvement, we look competitive. Which keeps us alive? Which keeps our clients supported? Which keeps them paid faster in practice? That's the moral thing." I said as steadily as I could, "The RFP asked for end-to-end. We can include a segmented view, but it can't replace the primary metric. It's misleading." He sighed. "Mara is already on board." I raised my eyebrows. He clarified, "On board with the story. She doesn't want to fight this battle either." I asked for permission to include a methodology appendix showing both metrics side by side. He said, "If the client asks, we'll provide it." Proactively, no. It creates confusion. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the slide with 36% in bold like a neon promise. I pictured a clinic director reading it, signing with us, then spending 6 months explaining to their board why the numbers didn't match reality. I pictured myself on a call, explaining that ours were controllable scope. I pictured the kind of emails that include the words misrepresentation and breach. The next morning, I went to Mara alone. I brought printed queries and the RFP clause highlighted. I said I couldn't certify the numbers as presented. She pinched the bridge of her nose and said, "Do you want to die on this hill?" I said it felt less like a hill and more like the first domino. She said she'd talk to Jay. Within an hour, my calendar filled with meetings removed and rescheduled. My access to the BI tool timed out for maintenance. Jay pinged me, "Let's take a beat. You're spiraling. We'll handle the deck." I replied that if the numbers remained as is, I would submit an internal ethics report because our policy requires accurate representations. He wrote, "Don't be dramatic." So I filed the report. Quietly, factually, I attached queries and diffs, the email chain, the RFP clause. Our ethics portal is supposed to go to a third-party ombud service. I felt sick clicking submit, like I dropped a match into a pile of dry leaves. 3 days later, HR scheduled a wellness check-in. They asked if I was overworked. They asked if I felt supported. They did not ask about the report. Jay started CCing the VP on every thread I touched. He told the team I would be heads down on internal cleanup tasks, while leadership finalizes the client-facing materials. My badge paused again at the analytics door. It opened. I stood there too long anyway, like a stray dog waiting to be shooed. Then the client's procurement lead emailed with a list of clarification questions, including, "Please confirm whether reported time to bill is measured end-to-end." I felt relief so sharp it hurt. They were asking, it meant I could answer honestly. But the reply went out from Jay within minutes. "Yes, figures represent our measured time from submission to readiness to bill within controllable scope. End-to-end timing varies by payer. Our improvement is most visible where clients implement best practices." It was like watching someone slide a ring onto the wrong finger and call it marriage. I went to Mara again, more forceful. She told me to sit. She said the ombuds had reviewed my submission and found no evidence of intent to mislead, only differences in methodology standardization. She said she admired my principles but warned that I was developing a pattern of adversarial behavior. She used the phrase, "not a culture fit for agile storytelling." I asked if agile storytelling included telling a client a number they explicitly didn't ask for. She said quietly, "Pick your battles." I drafted my resignation letter. I didn't send it. I needed the paycheck. My rent doesn't care about my noble stance on metrics. I called my dad and didn't tell him details, just said, "What if everyone at the table wants me to ignore something that feels wrong?" He said, "Baby, a short paycheck hurts less than a long conscience." I laughed and cried because he's a man who once refused to take home an extra roll of quarters when a coin machine jammed, and people still called him a fool. He died last year. I kept hearing his voice as if he were pacing my apartment, clacking a soda bottle against his palm. The next week, the client awarded us the contract, contingent on a methodology review. My heart thudded. They were going to look under the hood. Jay scheduled a prep with me, Mara, and the VP. He told me to answer only direct questions, not to over-contextualize, and to align on message. He said it like a mantra. The client's data team joined the call with cameras off and voices like scalpels. "Please provide the SQL used to calculate medians and cohort filters," they said. "Please confirm whether any long-tail claims were excluded." I shared my screen, opened the queries I wrote, walked them through line by line, narrated where we segment by best practice implementation, and where the full cohort sits. I felt Jay steaming in my peripheral vision. The client asked, "So the 36% is not end-to-end?" I said carefully, "It's a segmented measure of controllable scope. End-to-end improvement across the entire cohort is 9%, or 23% among properly configured clients." A silence, then a simple "thank you." We hung up. Jay didn't speak for a full minute. Then he said, "You undermined our narrative." I said, "They asked." He said, "You could have directed them to the appendix instead of volunteering alternative figures." I said, "Alternative figures are the actual figures." An hour later, HR called me in. My role was being restructured. They offered severance, a glowing reference, and a non-disparagement clause. My hands shook as I read it. It said I wouldn't make or publish any statement likely to cause harm to the company's business reputation. I asked if answering a client's direct question with an accurate number counted as harm. HR said this was just standard paperwork. I asked if the client would still sign. They said yes. The VP had called to say our transparency built trust. The word transparency felt like a mint stuck in a pile of dirt. I signed the severance and declined the non-disparagement rider. It reduced the payout. I walked out with a cardboard box and that weird sensation of being both ashamed and stubbornly relieved. On my last day, 2 engineers slipped me a post-it that said, "You were right." It helped for 5 minutes. That night, my friend group split like a log under a wedge. The ones who worship startups told me I'd tanked my career by being self-righteous. The quiet ones texted me heart emojis and asked for my resume. My mother said, "Why didn't you just find another job first?" My father's absence felt like a missing wallet at a gas station. Only when you need it most do you notice it's gone. A week later, the client's data lead emailed me personally. My personal email, not my work one, because I'd included it in the data dictionary as a backup. He thanked me for clarifying the methodology and said their board appreciated the end-to-end view. He also said they'd included both the 23% and the 9% in their internal memo to set realistic expectations. He wished me luck. I read that email 10 times. The part of me that likes databases exhaled. The part that likes rent panicked. Now I'm freelancing, consulting for a clinic that wants help cleaning their claim codes. It's not glamorous. I keep thinking about Jay's sentence, "That's the moral thing." I turn it over like a coin and wonder whose face is on the other side. Maybe we were both moral in different currencies. He thought keeping the company alive, so it could help clients, was moral even if the slide was fuzzy. I thought telling the exact truth was moral even if it made us look worse for a week. In his world, a story can hold two slightly different numbers if the arrow points up. In mine, a number is a floor you stand on. If you sand it down, someone eventually falls through. My therapist asked whether I'd do anything differently. I said I might have escalated sooner or documented more thoroughly, or tried to recruit allies quietly before confronting him. But the core act, answering the client honestly, I wouldn't change. She nodded and asked, "And the cost?" I said the cost is waking up at 3 a.m. and hearing the hum of a server room I don't work in anymore, seeing a slide with 36% I can't fix. So am I wrong? I told the truth in a room where truth was treated like a draft. I cost myself a comfortable job because I couldn't nod along while someone repainted a number to match a story. I don't feel like a hero. I also don't feel sorry. Mostly I feel lonely and weirdly calm, like standing outside at night after a fire alarm when you realize the air is cold and honest. Maybe that's what ethics really is, choosing which loneliness you can live with. If that makes me wrong, fine. At least the query runs clean.